I'm just loading them up right now. Loading them up. Come on, you guys, wake up. All right. YouTube just woke up, and now Instagram is awake. Jake, are you awake?
I am. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Making Turbo Pit Fighter. You might be wondering why you're seeing Chromita everywhere, the she-bot that built herself. But we were just discussing a couple of things before we went on the air. Um, we have a great show for you today. We're going to be jumping back into some page making. Um, I also have some sketches I did. And how did you like the text that you got last week for the Substack?
I haven't done anything. I'm going to do it right after today's recordings. So I do apologize. Got caught up with a bunch of other stuff. So, but
No
you
problem.
also owe me. You also owe me some new doodles too. I know there are some doodles included in the text. I'll grab those, of course, and
Oh, right.
chuck them in. But yeah, if you could throw a couple more in there. But yeah, nice.
Could we,
It looks juicy. That's all I gotta say right now. Just cruising it. It looks juicy.
right. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the Quantum Druids today. That's the latest installment that I gave you, and I give Kurt like this big just data dump of writing, and some of it is finished writing in chapters, and some of it is more like notes to self, or first drafts.
Ideas. Yeah, just an idea.
Yeah, or
Nothing
and
too
sometimes it's just like a thought. So every time I have my little MacBook Air and I flip open, I could always be editing or writing or adding to it. But the ideas that are coming now are revolving around the quantum druids, and these are a bunch of scientists that will exist in the future and they'll be working at Atlantic University, which is going to be kind of like a university of the future that combines a lot of existing universities because they all had to consolidate, due to budget cuts and due to deprioritizing education in the future. So all that's coming, and it's pretty negative and pessimistic. But the quantum druids are going to be a society of scientists that pledge to only use scientific advancements for the benefit of mankind. And they have to take this pledge in secret because if you do it out in the open, the dehubertons might put you on a list or defund your program or go after you. I mean, the quantum druids are all just going to be assassinated basically, and all of their technology stolen. And so I'm trying to like work backwards and get into a world where they all exist and they interlock with Esoterra, obviously, because Esoterra's parents are two of the scientists, and then each one of the pairs of quantum druid, each couple is going to be a specialist in a different it's a field of scientific knowledge where they're going to unlock quantum mechanics. So there's going to be like one that's doing it for food, one is doing it for time, one is doing it for magnetism, one is doing it for thermal, which is heat and cooling. The other one is doing it for like what we have time, we have thermal, electricity, we have magnetism, we have gravity, we have all. So there's going to be like each field of science will have like a quantum druid that is endeavoring in that field and doing breakthroughs. But then in the Substack that I gave you already, we learned that they get moved to a secret compound in the forest of Vermont, because they've already been compromised and their research has already been compromised. So the military moves them in and supports their work, but it moved them into a compound in the forest, and their children are uh, are living in tree houses that they build because they're bored and their parents are busy doing experiments all day, and they're building super colliders and stuff. So Esoterra is young Esoterra, who will be like 8 or 10 years old, will be the ringleader, and she gets all these kids to learn how to use mystic qualities, and they can like communicate in their own language. They're building stuff on their own. They're building this treehouse society where they stay away from the parents for like days at a time. And then the parents start to get upset that they have this new thing that they're doing, and they're creating phenomena in the sky like light shows and stuff, and they think it's a safety risk, and they're mad at Esoterra. She thinks she's brainwashing all their kids. So Esoterra eventually gets sent to a boarding school, but she stays in communication with these kids through telepathy and something they all call open ceiling, which is kind of like an astral plane, that but just for kids, that they all share in common. And Esoterra is going to grow up, and she's going to exhibit phenomena the world has never seen. She's going to get studied. She's going to be paired with Dr. Alexandra Leawak, and they're going to do all these breakthroughs, and they're going to really advance human enhancement. And when Esoterra goes back to visit the forest compound, she's going to find everybody was assassinated and hanging from trees, and all of their lab stuff is torched, and the dehubertins made off with pretty much everything. So that's going to kind of like up the stakes when Esoterra is an adult, and she'll have that to worry about, revenging the quantum druids, tracking down all their research and all their devices and stuff. And she'll of course be with Hellclaw and Chromita at that point. But I was just writing some stuff lately about the attack on the quantum druids, and it's going to be like these dehubertin triggermen that are like in these robo suits and stuff. And there's going to be one scientist mom who is hiding out, and when everybody else is getting slaughtered, and she doesn't know where to go, so she climbs up into the tree houses, and that's when she sees all of the writing on the wall and all the stuff, and she sees this switch on the wall, and so she flicks the switch. She doesn't know what it's for, and that switch is kind of like a distress call that goes out to Esoterra, and then she follows the wires to see what this is attached to, because she's a scientist and she wants to see how it works. And then she follows wires, and she finds out that the wires lead to a thimble that have a couple of rocks in it and a bird skull, a tiny little like skull of a sparrow. And she laughs it off, but it does send a real distress signal to Esoterra, who then will come to the compound and find them all. So I don't know, maybe we'll keep one alive, and so that she can apologize to Esoterra for banishing her and not trusting that her powers were working and everything. But there's going to be a big confluence of like how science and how mysticism work together hand in hand in the story. And I was just writing the part where Esoterra, after everyone's murdered, this one scientist will be around long enough to realize that everything she was doing was real and powerful. And I also have to think about what happens to all the other children Are they going to be in the compound? Are they going to be slaughtered? Are they going to maybe be older by then and go all their separate ways? So if you have any ideas for that, I'm all
I
in.
like the going away and possibly generating new characters.
Yeah.
To come in later and have that already built in knowledge. The kind of like what's going on. Your camera's blurry, Jake. I don't know what it is. You might have been.
Oh, I might have. There we go. Maybe I got some Vaseline on it or something. Yeah, it should be interesting. And I'm never sure like what to make a comic sequence when I'm doing like a little 6-pager script. Some of this stuff is really more for prose and just descriptions and stuff, and some of the stuff might be like the attack on the compound might be fun for a 6-pager, but if you do that, then you have to do character designs for everybody, and you have and so there's going to be like 12 scientists, and I only designed like 2 of them so far. But that's always fun to do. You just need the time. So more to come on the quantum druids. They're definitely a bullet point now in the updated Substack bullet points, and we haven't forgot the other bullet points, but I'm kind of consolidating them into a tableau where and I'm memorizing it better. It's going to be starting out with Shankra versus the P-bots, and so that's going to get into the whole world of the pleasure bots. Then it's going to go to the Duke, the Secret Chronicles of the Duke, and we have some writing about that. Then it's going to go to the casualties, which is comprised of Esoterra, Hellclaw, and Chromita, and that's kind of like a super enhanced team. One is a robot, and then Hellclaw and Esoterra are just natural wonders that really haven't figured out how they have these powers yet. The Quantum Druids is next, and they're the saga of being annihilated and everything. And then is going to come Elevena, and Elevena will be Esoterra's daughter, who is created in order to figure out the science behind everything that's going on. And Elevena figures out formulas to enhance humans, and that becomes a commodity that enables Elevena to unify all the cults ahead of the Tuesday, massacre, where the U.S. government falls on February 22nd, 2022. Elevena will create a giant resistance compound, and she will successfully unify all the cults by bribing some of the cult leaders with enhancement and allowing them to be enhanced. And some of them will just want to be like physically enhanced for cosmetic sake, and some will want like super strength and super intelligence and super processing ability, like fast thinking and stuff. But some of them will be so like shallow that all they care about is like having a good body, let's say. But anyway, she will be unifying the cults in a giant resistance compound, and we're gonna have to go over a map of the U.S. because state by state, there's going to be states that sign up for the Dehuberton Life Plan contracts and states that don't, and the states that don't. So there's going to be basically like a civil war. And I don't know if you saw that Civil War movie that was out like last year or 2 years ago, but they had an interesting concept. What happens if some states pulled away from the other states, and we had hot war military stuff. It was an interesting movie. It was kind of depressing and kind of negative, but
those get you thinking.
I'm always watching. Yeah, I'm always watching post-apocalyptic sci-fi stuff. I saw last night a low-budget movie on Amazon Prime or whatever I watched, and it was called Apocalypse Earth, or Earth Apocalypse. I forget which is which. It barely matters, it was like this low budget, movie about these people who leave Earth because they're attacked by aliens, and they just take off in this like, spaceship arc thing, and then when they get to this new planet, they're fighting all these like invisible aliens, and it's so low budget. But then like they have this really really like hot chick that's like in all like lizard camouflage, like lizard skin, and she's just like parading around the whole, the whole thing. She's in the bushes and she's got spears and stuff. And so it was like one of those low budget movies where they were not hiding at all how cheap the special effects were and how campy everything is. And and the actors just look like just people off the street. But if anybody wants to, I honestly I fell asleep at the end, and when I woke up, a different sci-fi movie was on because of the automated playlist logarithm or whatever.
Right.
But yeah. So, but it held my interest. Like I did not switch off in disgust at any point. But I was thinking about it a couple of times. But when you embrace the suck, and you're like, all right, this movie is not trying to be anything here, and they're fighting. It's like the Land of the Lost when they're fighting like these giant lizards and stuff. They look like lizards in a tank that have a green screen, and they're just huge, and so it's really like 1970s technology. But when they do it and they just play the music like wah, 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 wah. So it's great. So bad movie, love bad movies.
Speaking of bad movies, guess what I did?
You saw a bad movie.
Oh, I went and bought another set of 32 drive-in cult classics.
Oh.
And I'm trying to get through them now. Although I had just finished watching, I think like 3/4 of the Tom Baker Doctor Who, which is on Amazon through BritBox, which we subscribe to.
Right.
But this one's like half, not even half. It's like a third horror. There's one I want to watch. It's called Land of the Minotaur.
Oh boy.
Which has got Donald Pleasance, Peter Cushing, Luann Peters, 1976. A satanic cult kidnaps 3 young tourists with the intent of murdering them as ritual sacrifices. So that's next on my list.
Right.
And then the rest of them were like, there's a couple of repeats. There's a couple of repeats from the one that we had bought together.
Yeah.
Like Trip with Teacher, The Teacher, Malibu.
Oh, that teacher one was insanely bad. Was that she was like the basketball coach or something?
Yeah, and it's like a kind of like it was an actress that ended up like getting some TV stuff. I don't know if she was. They were. I don't know.
Oh yeah, no,
Dallas or something like that.
No, that was the daughter. That was the daughter, the famous daughter. She was in That's Incredible, right? Remember, she was a big name. Crosby.
Yeah.
Crosby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got it.
So that was an amazing B movie that Kurt sent me, because they were openly embracing an affair between a teacher and a student, and they were showing them showering together and having and all this stuff. And I was like, didn't anybody have a filter in those days? Like, this is highly illegal and improper. And they were like, well, we can't get caught and everything. It was like, dude, we're not on your side. Like, whoa, what the hell? So that was actually a very funny movie. But I think some of these movies are, and they're still making low budget movies today. And with Netflix, it's a little different, because you can just hire people on their home computers to just like do special effects and green screen and stuff. So I guess there's a great underground industry for that, or cottage industry for that.
I think about that a lot. Like,
but in the 70s, when you're talking about having a big name like Donald Pleasance or something, these are guys that were at the end of their chain, and they're making these movies just for the paycheck, and they're probably getting scale, and everybody else in the whole production was getting nothing. And it's there, a lot of these were made out west, so you really wonder, like, why don't they just be honest and just put a credit at the end for the coke dealer, because it's such bad stuff that it's just the following the long tradition of bad movies that are so bad that they're good. And and
That
sometimes,
whole exploitation thing. Like I watched Weekend with the Babysitter because I have seen the Babysitter one. So it was basically the same crew that did the Babysitter movie. And both of these movies, you would think like, oh wow, the Babysitter, this is going to be like softcore. Nah, there's like about a total of like 7 minutes of anything that gets
yeah,
questionable and raunchy, and it's all tight psychedelic lenses that distort things and stuff.
wow,
But this one is, I mean, it's just like they literally took a piece of paper, cut it in fours, and then in each box said, okay, what's going on high? Oh, motorcycles, motocross. Okay, we're going to have motocross. Flying airplanes to cabins in the mountains. Oh, okay. Drug dealers, right? With Mexicans, drug dealers. Oh, and then junkie housewives. So that was the whole movie, with those things. And of course, it's a movie producer's wife who's the junkie who gets involved with the Mexican drug dealers.
sounds autobiographical.
The babysitter introduces him to like a really good time in like understanding what the kids want today, and they go meet her friends who are all into motocross, and then their kind of sexy time getaway is he flies them to his secluded mountain cabin for such and such and everything. But it's like I must be so dyslexic and attention deficit and disorder that it makes sense to me. Like as I watch it, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, I've never been one to walk away from a movie that was truly stupid and thought that was a stupid movie. I just found it to be escapist and silly, and it just like kind of just like touch all sensories in the brain, imagination wise especially and stuff. Like I watched oh god, a month ago, what is it, Aliens Attack. It's the Don Dolan movie. I mean, we're talking about straight like home 35 millimeter in a town with all your friends and neighbors playing roles. The new latex, you could, suits for the monsters, and at the end to boot, superimposed stop motion monster they had to. I mean, it was amazing. It was amazing. It was very close to my favorite bad stop motion movie, or movie with stop motion in it, which is
Jason and the Argonauts.
No, that's not a bad one. That's actually a really good one. No, it's called Equinox. And then of course then there's Laser Blast. Those are the two. Those are my like foundational, like how I judge others, stop motion movies. Is like, even being in a cheesy way and stuff.
Right. Well, if anybody is wondering, we are fascinated with B movies, and there's lots of different genres. Sci-fi is my all-time fave, but sometimes you run out and you watch other types. Kurt just got himself another collection. I was at a record fair yesterday, and I passed up. There was a couple of guys that had some comic boxes and zines and like sheet music and all these different weird things. And the price was a little too high. I was about to pull the string and get this $15 French underground comic zine. I didn't get it because it was a little. I don't remember the name because it was in French.
Is it a P?
I don't remember the name,
There's
but
a really hot. Was it new? Because there's a
no,
really hot.
it was vintage. It had all the old
Oh,
classic guys in it, and some
okay.
of the European guys. But it was translated, and Wally Wood was on the cover. Wally Wood art was on the cover, and he had stuff inside from Sally Forth. Yeah, I mean, I probably should have got it, but 15 was a lot, and the guy wouldn't budge, and um, I also, oh man, I forgot to go back and get the rest of they had the Starstruck from Michael Kaluta, and those
Oh,
were only
yeah.
$1, but we had to kind of leave because I was helping my sick friend out, and we were buying a whole bunch of records. But the things that it's just messed up when everybody knows the value of stuff, because then you can't afford it. You want to get everything for $1, but they had there was some other guy that had some underground stuff, some like adult comics. He had Inner City Romance, which is really really inappropriate, like stuff, and they had what else yesterday? Oh, they had all of these like Misfits concert flyers, and like just these like zeros. I don't know why they're so valuable, but just like they're not. It's art, but it's just like a sheet of paper, and it just commemorates a concert. And I guess there's this whole collectible thing. Anything the Misfits do, it's not a record. It's just like and it's not a zine. It's just like a, I guess, flyer, and guy had a bunch of those. They had lots of movie posters, with those like smaller ones that are like rectangular. But the only thing I ended up getting was this. This was a pretty good buy right here. The Apex
Yeah.
Treasury of Underground Comics. This has all of the. I guess Apex is the ripoff people. That was the printer. It was Apex. I think his name was Don Donahue. But you got a lot of Crumb in here, and Bill Griffith, Art Spiegelman, Spain Rodriguez, Gilbert Shelton, Sherry Flanagan, Bobby London, Jay Lynch, and Kim Deitch. So there's that. And this is not suitable for this podcast, but I'll be checking that out. And also, since we last spoke, I was doing kind of a dive on the latest. Our Crumb is in the crosshairs today from a lot of young generation kind of like Me Too bloggers, and I think there's this whole controversy of separating the artist from the art, because Robert Crumb
Well, the Neil Gaiman thing has kicked it all back up.
Yeah, well, the Neil Gaiman thing, I caught up on, and Neil Gaiman is like this really rich producer of comics and movies and everything, and he's, accused,
Allegedly.
he's accused. Well, he's factually accused,
Allegedly.
right? He's factually accused. The accused is alleged, and
Allegedly.
but he didn't seem to deny anything too strongly. He just said it was all consensual. So, and he was into some weird like role playing stuff, that guy, and allegedly, but I mean, that's part of his defense is he's saying like everything I was doing is legal and everything I was doing was consensual. And he might be right about that. We weren't, nobody was there except the people that were there. So, but they.
What's their R Crumb? Like, what have you heard about the R Crumb?
So on the R Crumb, there's just these, women bloggers who are, I think that the controversy is like that because of the moment we're in nowadays, and like the realization that we're in nowadays, is that you need to cancel everything the person did.
Well, the human. You have to cancel the human. Like,
right.
You have to eradicate the human from ever existing, and historical is where you go to. And it's quite disturbing, but I'm going to let you keep talking, and I might have to.
Well, it's just a generational divide, because in a lot of these comments of the blog, it's like older people like, well, you don't understand what women had to put up with back in those days. That was just normalized, and how common it was. And I think, the people from nowadays, women and men, are just like, it doesn't matter when it happened, it's never right. And, it just like, I guess basically accusing everybody else from that time of putting up with it, and making it acceptable and making it normalized. But I mean, I can tell my mom was a model when she was younger. And so whenever I was growing up, like walking down the street with my mom, she would get catcalls and stuff. And,
Yeah,
you know,
in New
she,
York too, by the way.
right, in New York. And,
They invented it, didn't they? Or
before I
was
was
it?
born, when my mom was literally like a model on magazine covers and stuff. And, before I was born, she was like literally just getting like grabbed on the streets, like, in those days you had to like literally fight people off, and get your way out of sticky situations. And, and that was, 100% wrong. But it's like, but if the cops came to to the door of a guy that like, was beating up his wife and everything, they wouldn't arrest anybody. It was just like a different time. And, I'm against that. Like, I'm on the right side and everything, but it's just how it was. And there's nothing anybody could do to change that. So Robert Crumb, the biggest crime Robert Crumb did, because he, is his honesty. Because
Yes.
all of these
Yes.
bloggers are using his own words and his own admissions in interviews and his own, comics where he reveals things that no other cartoonist, had the balls to reveal about themselves, and it's all autobiographical and it's all true, and he's giving everybody, the ammo, to use against him, because that's his crazy, take on things, is that he's like the super honest, cartoonist, and honest about, and, Robert Crumb made an announcement, sometime in the last couple of years, and he's in his 80s now. So he's like, I am no longer drawing women. I am no longer a slave to my libido. Right. And that is, a perfectly clear admission that he couldn't help himself. He was just, like juiced up all the time and was drawing all these women and everything. Couldn't help it. A lot of the stuff is all in fantasy and everything. But he did, in some interviews, he did say, talking about how, it used to be in the bad old days, and he couldn't believe about things he got away with, with women, just like allowing him to, like, Robert Crumb used to like, you know, I guess, like, jump on top of women and like crawl over them. And, you can see from all his cartoons that, they were like carrying
Well,
him
just
and stuff.
the documentary is a must see. I mean, one of the greatest documentaries on an artist in creative journeying. And like you just said, he's not only still alive, but at that point in time, when the documentary was being made, he was going to live in France,
Yeah.
the rural part of France,
He's lived in
to
Dixie.
get away from American ideology and culture, that was just getting more and more, quote unquote, him, like retarded, and he did it on a briefcase of like 8 sketchbooks of his. Some collector paid him $1 million for, and gave him French citizenship and a place to live.
Right.
It's I think too, like, I know for me, developing as a creative person, especially like a cartoonist, or a comic book artist, or what, illustrator or whatever, coming across his work, there's like a shock to your system, because you really don't have anything to be prepared in the artistry of the work, like how artfully it's made, b, how well it's presented. There's nothing outside of the lines per se. And as you stated, how openly autobiographical and honest he was in investigating that topic. And two, I just want to add, like, you can really figure it out, not only in the movie, but in other interviews. He was very associated with pornographic publishers in San Francisco. So this wasn't something like he was doing from the outside looking in. You know, he was providing illustrations. He was, you know, making comics and all this kind of stuff. And it was in the lewd sense of knowing there's a market of men out there that would just grab it and go.
Well, yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that Crumb did as parody or as like satirical commentary on racism was fully embraced by the KKK and reprinted, you know, ad nauseam.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so, you know, he got a lot. Yeah, he got a lot of criticism because it's, you know, as if he was. I mean, you know, he had characters that were like shockingly offensive with, like, you know, Sambo lips and stuff, and you know, he was doing this all as a commentary of American, you know, excesses and American culture, and you know, and how, you know, we embrace it. I mean, because the whole thing about the underground comics, I mean, you know, they took Mickey Mouse, they made him a drug dealer, you know, they made him Mickey Rat, you know, they had him smoking, they had him doing all kinds of stuff. They had little funny animal characters having sex. I mean, you know, that they had all kinds of like stuff that was meant to shock and outrage, because it was just like appealing, you know, the era where they were peeling back censorship, and they were like, okay, anything goes, and we have access to a printing press, you know, and that was a really big deal. And so all these guys and girls and women, you know, they made magazines. You know, some of it was adult, some of it was not, some of it was just political, some of it was humor, you know, a million different styles. It's very hit or miss when you get these undergrounds. You know, a lot of them were anthologies and compilations, and a lot of it doesn't hold up in today's, you know, kind of like, you know, prism of what was going on. And you know, so you can see the culture shock of younger generations reading this stuff, and like, you know, especially like, you know, S. Clay Wilson or Spain, because you know, these guys were doing stuff that was brutally, like, you know, violent, gory, and sexy all at once, you know, and they were making like pastiches of gore and sex and violence, you know, in these giant posters and stuff. And so, you know, it's just like, you know, they're not used to it, and you know, they're probably like looking at this stuff like, wow, you know, these people are like savages, they're crazy, you know, they're off their rocket, right? And you know, all it was, you know, it was just like, you know, what would you draw in a comic if there was no rules at all, and you're trying to thumb your nose at the man, you know, which is like, you know, the big publishing gatekeepers, and you're just going straight to the audience, and the audience is like, you know, maybe like, you know, 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds, and they're all snickering and laughing like what people are getting away with. I mean, you know, when you can't even say the titles of the comics, you know. that's how adult they were and how subversive they were, and that was the whole point. But you know, I had to say, like, you know, I read the girl's essay, the woman's essay, and you know, I agree with everything she said. Basically, it's just that, you know, I don't think she was putting it in the context of you know, the fact that for Crumb, everything was an admission, everything was a confession, everything was purposely designed, you know, to do, you know, to have that, you know, to have that reaction, and to, you know, to be, you know, shocking and use that shock. And you know, Crumb said, like, you know, he goes, I was not a, you know, there was plenty of aggressive guys that would just like manhandle girls and grope them, and you know, do a kind of like unconsensual stuff and borderline unconsensual stuff. But you know, he said he wasn't that guy. You know, he said he was a nebbish, and he was shy, and he was quiet, and he was all this, and that, you know, it's just that it was a time of free love, and you know, women were up for stuff back then, and he was just like, the guy that was there, love the one you're with, right? And then his commentary about once he was famous is a commentary about America, because he got girls, women that he never would have gotten if he wasn't a famous artist, never in a million years, right? And they're throwing themselves at him, voluntarily, and now it's supposed to be seen, as a bad thing. Well, the women were, they were star effing, and he was taking advantage, because he was getting his fantasies out and everything. So it was a transaction that you see every single day with rock stars, and and even somebody like Alan Moore, where women go under your spell, let's say, and some may regret it later, and some of it might be legal, but bad, and then some of it might be crossing a line, and that's when all the lawyers come into it, and that's what you saw with Alan Moore, is a lot of non-disclosure agreements and settlements and
Alan
stuff.
Moore and Neil Gaiman.
Oh, sorry, did I
Neil
say?
Gaiman, yeah,
Yeah,
let's correct. Yeah,
sorry,
because
my apologies to Alan Moore and your
sorry,
family and
Alan.
your estate and everything.
Yeah,
But
no,
yeah, it's Neil Gaiman. Sorry,
they haven't called him out yet.
I was just reading about all this, so it was all fresh in my mind. But yeah, Neil Gaiman is he's accused,
Under the
and
scrutiny.
then everybody's talking about it in the context of Ed Piskor, because
Yeah, yeah.
because Ed Piskor, he did commit suicide after these allegations came out. I mean, nothing even bad in Ed Piskor's case. It was like, hardly even like, crossing any line of legality. It was, just maybe, impropriety or perception of impropriety, depending who you ask. But it was like, people are posting about this, and they're like afraid that Neil Gaiman is going to commit suicide. I don't think so, folks. This guy's multimillionaire. He's he's set up mentally very differently. So plus he's got an army of lawyers, so whatever. But yeah, I was just going down the rabbit hole, and every time you pick up an underground nowadays, you have to realize this is a document from a bygone era, and and things aren't the same now. Things aren't the same, and it wasn't there. We didn't have the same like lines that were drawn between regular art and pornography back then. Back then you had movies like Death Wish, where a lady was just thrown on the floor and ard, and and that was just like going to the movie on a Tuesday night, back in those days. And now there's pornography, but it's pornography, right? It's like, okay, this is something somebody's going to take in the back room and close the door, and then watch in their own private space, and nobody's going to ask any questions about it, and that's it, and people just consume that kind of stuff. And we went through that, with comics, where the undergrounds went away, and then there was, like, in the 90s, all of these kind of like adult comics that were just adult stuff for adult's sake, just like popping in a video or something. A VHS back in those days was popular. And now we're in this new different kind of era where you don't see very many comics like that anymore. And and you do see some shocking stuff, and some people that are trying to put themselves out there and get noticed, based on I'm gonna break into some boundaries here. But that's always been the case in art. You can go back to the painters, and you can go back to
So we have just sorry, Jake, but we do have a viewer in our YouTube. MS is the channel name, but he has been nailed. He or she, they, I guess, is the most. But they start out with, what Picasso or Jimmy Page. I think their contributions cannot be denied. However, someone like Crumb, his entire has to do with being a sexually groovy, even a perv. They also say I think that Dan Klaus and R. Crumb are two sides of the same coin, which I think is really, really good. And the follow up they bring into play is like Picasso's Minotaur drawings. If you go back to those that time and that space and where Picasso was and how he saw himself as the Minotaur and how it very much like R. Crumb was critically and openly exposing who he is or was. That, you know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
it was a lot more. It was a lot more coded with Picasso. I mean, Crumb is just like much more explicit
because it was
and
a different
autobiographical.
time. It was a different time and for a different aspect of the culture. Picasso wasn't speaking to the guy down at the factory or the Midwestern town. That's not who he was talking to. As well as our Crumb back then was talking to head shops. Like I said, the porn industry as a distribution model, underground comics, Fantagraphic, wasn't speaking to the greater public. It's only when he does, because of the documentary, becomes a household name, does it then start permeating the membrane of what people feel safe with in their own, American, suburban, middle class, all the nuclear family and everybody's good, right? And we all know that that's just the biggest crappy lie that not only is told and sold to us, but is also we constantly perpetuate it. We always take a knee if somebody comes in as upset. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying we will take the knee and go, oh yeah, you're right, yeah, that's tough, that's hard, yep. But then does it ever get into what I would deem like an intellectual conversation? In other words, nobody's right or wrong. You're trying to eke out whys, whats, hows. You're just trying to put it into context to then be dealt with over time. But this annihilation approach to historical art, our Crumb being the topic right now, is absolutely one of the working mechanisms that will drive this country to an apocalypse, because you're taking fundamentally the truth out of the guts, out of the guts of who we are as a culture. You can't turn your back on what really truly exists and say it doesn't exist anymore and I don't like it. I mean, you can, but to try to force, and we're already, I think, having the blowback now, which is kind of refreshing in that I hear more and more from people, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, most people would have pussyfooted around a topic or even wanting to put something like we're doing right now online and be so openly critical or want to talk openly about, have a discussion about it. But I just, I find it to be incredibly detrimental to the creative process. And dare I say, if you take individuals wanting to eradicate historical art figures from existence and the alignment trajectory of a younger generation using AI to now generate their art perpetually, I don't want to take part in any of that. Like, I watched the thing real quick on Lex Friedman, a clip where he was talking to two very young AI entrepreneur developers and stuff like that. And one of them was losing his freaking mind on how excited he was when these models get into their own sentient understanding of moving around the internet in order to make an opposable thumb arm to be able to then generate, you know what I mean? To start, making up. If you want to look up Lex Friedman AI influencers and millionaires or something like that, but the idea comes crumbling into that there'll be robots out there that will be making more money than any creative entity out there because they can do it all the time at the highest scale. And it will not be any different from what you see anywhere else right now. It will be all fake, but we will buy into it. And and he was excited. This young guy was excited about it. So, yeah, I just also want to call us out on time. We're about 10 minutes over into 11 in the morning, and we do have a awesome comic book interview coming up with Jeff Moss and one of his most recent graphic novels. But I also want to say this, Jake. I'm going to start texting you earlier in the morning on Sunday to help me title our podcast since we're live. I try to come up with a topic and I title our live podcast, Making Turbo Pit Fighter, which today is Diamond Distribution Failing Comics, and we never even touched on it, so I need to go and rewrite that title. So I do apologize to anybody who does click us, and they're at this point, and they say, "Hey man,
maybe you want to make it like, what will they talk about today?" Maybe
I have used that like 6 times already. I've even used ChatGPT to come up with different variations.
Yeah, I mean, if you have,
you do come stronger in on topics. I have to give you that, and I will say so. I will kind of nudge you before we get on at 10, like to maybe give some idea, maybe topical.
Yeah. If we have
it's Cremita and the cyber or the quantum druids or whatever.
Yeah, it's just a rundown, just some things to talk about and make sure we get to before we run out of time. But as anybody can plainly hear, we go wherever the conversation takes us. We're just drawing here. It took me quite a while to work on these, and I apologize if people can't see because this is my light blue line pencil. And it's light on purpose so I can go over it with a regular pencil afterward. But I'm trying to do this upward shot of a face of Sister Ray, and it's really hard to do these upward shots. I even looked up a reference and everything, and I'm going to go over this in a regular pencil, hopefully fix it up. But if you look in a camera right now and you position it so that your nose is sticking out in between your eyes, it doesn't look good, and it's not an aesthetic for comics, but it's a really good comic artist that can do that. And so I'm challenging myself here. I want to call out somebody like David Mazzucchelli, who was really good when he was on Daredevil about these like obtuse angles and stuff. But I just want it to be like, a worm's eye view as she's snapping the crucifix here to get the, the chrysanium isotopes out. Here, I kind of crowded myself into a corner because I'm making stuff really, really small here, and I feel bad about that. But I'm going to compensate in the next panel. These pages are really kind of packed in, so I have to really maybe just zoom out a little bit to make the figures a little bit smaller. It's tough though because when you're zoomed out, you don't really see a person's face and facial expressions, so I think you lose a little bit of intimacy. But these are just some of the things I'm grappling with here on page 23 as I'm transferring my roughs to my final comic board here. And as you can see here, I'm just about to get into the part where Turbo's going to get strapped into a catapult. There's a little bit of an tearful exchange. And then Sister Ray is going to bring down the curtain rods full of radioactive peas. And here she's going to finally smash them down so that the next panel is going to be literally a mushroom cloud. So we're getting somewhere with this page, but it's dense, and I don't know. Like, I think Turbo 2, we're gonna have to rethink it for Turbo 3 and 4, because the writing is really packed in and it's very rich with detail and dialogue and stuff. But it's like it's coming at a cost now, because these pages are taking so long to do. Like, I'm only doing a tier here in an episode.
I'm working on the 2-pager for Cremita, which the Shebach made herself. I am really I love working over your stuff, as a statement. It will be constantly made over and over again. But these pages, because once again, I'm with you every Sunday for an hour and a half, and then just on this, and then we do some other videos like comics that will influence and the Indie Creator Exchange. But the way this is informing me about what we've been talking about, you primarily about the building of this world and the characters and stuff, I think is perfect. So even for what little I can see on my camera, in the pages that you got going on in issue 2, I just really need. I don't want to see you criticizing yourself and pulling back from anything just yet. Because also, too, everybody, these are 11 by 17 pencils that Jake's working on. I blow them up to 13 by 19. So I'm not scared of the little and then I'm even using 0.3 rapidograph style high C pens to get in and around there. So not afraid, but you're right. There is an anxiety that is deep within the two of us, but we have to constantly remind each other and everybody else. Jake and I only do this every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern time. And we're coming up next month on our 3rd year anniversary. And that's also coinciding with the fact we'll also be over at IC3. Indie Comics Creator Con, March 15, 2025, 10 to 6, Southern Connecticut State University. But Jake, this is all I have, because we got to get ready for Jeff Moss in this interview. But do you have anything you want to give him to close out, let them get back to reading comics, making them if they choose?
No, just a reminder. Next time, if we want to have a rundown ahead of time, we could talk about the Cremita 2-pager. I don't think we really talked about it, and and maybe we'll talk about your process a little bit, because people might notice that Kurt, when he's inking a page, he's going up and down and left and right and north and south. What the hell? So maybe we need to ask Kurt about that. We'll see. No, we're getting ready for the Indie Creator Con. We'll see you guys there. I apologize that it's printed in Helvetica. I don't know what's up with that, but that's my OCD kicking in.
Not me. By the way, this is no. Actually, maybe I did. No. I copied this from them.
Yeah, it's a but yeah, and then. And if anybody else is listening and you want to comment, if something's unclear about our presentation, feel free. We can answer questions. We know that we are rambling men, and we try to be better, about being, rhythmical back and forth, speakers, call and response and everything. But basically, we're just two guys drawing and just shooting the breeze. So that's why.
We're hanging out at Jake's house. That's what I always
hanging out at Jake. We're a little less
just hanging out at Jake's house,
right? And we're also doing some high level art here at the same time. So anything that's pouring out of our heads is has a disclaimer that it's all secondary. So that's all. Yeah.
All right then.
But check us out live here again next Sunday, and check out our other channels. Last week we did a creator interview. We're doing another one this week, and in between those, we'll be getting back to our flip throughs, where we'll be doing. I don't think I'll be able to be doing stuff like this, but we did say that we were going to catch up with the hot stuff at some point, and we're both going to do a hot stuff. And I got my Phoebe Zeitgeist talking about
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
I still have this to do. This is an interesting story that I have a kind of a connection to. But for today, we'll zoom into this. This looks like an incredible piece here. So
Yeah, can't wait.
see you guys all next week. Bye, y'all. See you in the funny papers.
See you next Sunday, Jake.